You're now listening to Sound Talent Media. Check out more shows at soundtalentmedia.com.
Hey, what's up, everyone? I'm Matt McGachy, the vocalist of Cryptopsy and the host of the Vox and Hops Metal Podcast, where I sit down with fellow metal musicians. We talk all about their lives and music while sharing killer craft beers. If you've ever wanted to sneak backstage and share a beer with one of your favorite musicians, well, Vox and Hops is the podcast for you. This week on the podcast, I dropped a killer episode with Kelly Schaefer of Atheist. There is this episode and over 440 other ones to help you enjoy life, metal, and craft beer. So what are you waiting for? It's time to become a Vox and Hops head. Cheers!
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the podcast. I am stoked to have you here. Today, I am talking to Matt Oram from Fidelity Guitars. If you are not familiar with Fidelity Guitars already, I suggest sliding over to their Instagram very briefly and just kind of giving it a browse to familiarize yourself with some of the things that we're talking about. It's not going to take you very long, so just go over to Fidelity Guitars Instagram. It'll be in the show notes of the podcast, and it'll give some context for some of the stuff that we are talking about on this episode. I don't have too much business to take care of at the top here, but I did want to make mention that the winners of the Maris LVX giveaway have been selected. Jeremy Ryan Music was announced on Instagram, and the Erratic Pedal Adventures was the Patreon winner. Those were both selected via random.org's random number generator. Thank you to everyone who participated in that, and thank you to Maris for supplying those pedals and making incredible stuff and supporting this show. Big shout out to the Maris team over there. Okay, without further ado, let's get into this episode with Mr. Matthew Oram of Fidelity Guitars. Here we go. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Tone Mob Podcast, the show about guitar stuff occasionally, sometimes. I'm your host, Blake Weiland. With me today, I have Matt Oram from the amazing Fidelity Guitars. What's going on, dude?
Oh, that's very kind. Yeah, hello. No, what's going on? It's Friday here. It's Friday evening. It's all good. I'm in a happy place.
You're winding down. You got some Guinness. You're ready to go, right?
It's actually, I lied. It's actually the fake Brewdog Guinness, which is, I kind of feel bad about. I feel like I'm taking money away from Guinness, but they probably don't care.
I think they're doing okay. I have a sense that the Guinness is probably doing a little better than Brewdog even. So
don't say that. I bought shares in them like years ago, and I'm still waiting for that big payday.
You know, I saw that too, and
coming.
I almost did myself, and I was like, I don't know.
Yeah, I think you made the wise decision. They've done very well out of my money. I'm really pleased for them.
Yeah, they're a cool company, though. Yeah, you know. Yeah. But yeah, I've been wanting to get you on. Geez, I feel like it's been like 3 years. We've been kind of going back and forth to try to make this happen. And
yeah, it's been like 3 or 4. I use my inbox, my email inbox as like my to-do list. Like, so I'm really fussy about it. If there's some things in there, it's because I need to do something about it. Stuff doesn't pile up in there. There's only ever like 10 or 20 emails in there, and one of them right at the bottom is send Blake guitar. That has been since 2018. So I'm like, apologies for that. I think that's my fault.
No, hey, things have been crazy, but I mean, it seems like for you, it's because things have taken off pretty steadily. I think when you first reached out, it was a little bit of an early stage thing, if I'm reading the room right. But
yeah, I think that
quickly
would be
got quite a wait list.
Yeah, that would have been like year 2. So at that point, I was really only sort of just starting to build the guitars in their entirety and sort of starting to get sort of production models together and things like that. Sort of actually formalize some designs or some actual models for a range, which feels like a long time ago now. And yeah, it's been thankfully been fairly consistently busy since then in the context of one guy covered in dust in a former industrial meat store in the middle of the field, like building guitars one at a time. It's only scales to a certain level, but in that small context, yeah, it's going all right.
Very good, very good. Well, I want to get your whole story. I first was introduced to your work from Joe Branton, and I was just like, I gotta know more. You know, Joe's a mutual friend, and he's a great guy and a champion of your work. And I tend to fall in line when he's vouching for something. I usually end up liking it too. So I've been really excited to check this guitar out, and I just want to know more about you, though. Like, what's the story? You make great guitars, you make unique guitars, but you didn't just wake up one day and start doing that. So what's your background and how did you get here?
Kind of, but in a roundabout way, yeah. And yeah, thanks to Joe as well. Like Joe picked up on what I was doing, like through prototypes that I was posting on Instagram in 2017, and sort of latched onto it. And one of the first people I talked to about anything. So yeah, I owe a big thank you. But I kind of came at it with no experience in woodwork or luthiery at all. So all I'd done prior to starting the business was, since I was a kid, sort of modding pickups and pulling bits out of guitars and hacking bits off and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Prior to sort of starting the company in January 2017, so six and a bit years ago, I'd had a decade in marketing. And not even like the nice, like fancy advertising marketing where you come up with cool pictures. It was data marketing, so like planning ad campaigns, and while it was still legal, like buying people's data and working out how best to force things down your throat. But I was pretty good at it, and it wasn't an awful job. Like the people I worked with at the agency I was at were great, and it was relatively interesting. But it got to the point where it was just making me pretty sad every day. And so it must have been like 2015. I think looking back on it, it felt like sort of some anxiety creeping in. I think it was probably more like a slow motion breakdown.
Oh, geez.
So basically went from being sort of the guy in the company that would go out and talk to people and like sales pitch and stuff like that, and being like the smooth guy, to suddenly just having a complete inability to speak to anyone in public, even if it was my friends or like people I'd known for years. So, which was like a weird, hard thing to take. But I think the problem was that I put so much energy into this thing, like every day that you get to the end of it and you go, no, it doesn't make me happy. So I handed in my notice start of 2016, and I was on like 12 months notice. So I had a year where I still had to work hard, but I knew I wasn't going to get fired. Right. I had already quit. I had a year where I basically decided, what do I want to do? And when I was at university, I'd been studying aerospace engineering. So my dad was a aerospace engineer. So he fixed planes. He did that straight out of school. And I'd always wanted to be a pilot when I was a kid. So I'd had a scholarship from the RAF to learn to fly. So I learned to fly before I could drive. So,
wow.
Yeah, which was cool. Which was pretty cool for a 16-year-old. And I've never flown since, I should say.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Okay.
But so that was kind of where I was set. Couldn't become a fighter pilot because I'm a hay fever, which is the most ridiculous reason.
Hay fever?
Yeah, hay fever. So I think they're worried you sneeze and you press the missile release button and there's like an international incident. Okay. So yeah, I can kind of understand it. I think maybe fair enough. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So that was what I was set to go down, and then started studying aerospace engineering at university, and got to the final year of that, and went through some family stuff. My mum died around then as well, and I kind of just thought, nah, I'm not interested in this. Went off and went snowboarding for a year. So that's part of my background, is sort of failed engineer, and and then the other part is sort of all through my 20s and stuff. I was in sort of bands where I was living in Bath in the southwest of England at the time. Mainly sort of playing bass with them, and then when that band fell apart, sort of playing guitar and singing with the people, sort of the remnants of that, put together another band, and that kind of did okay, and we got a bit of interest, but didn't really sort of go anywhere with it. So it's like one of the things that made me happy when I got to this point where I was sort of coming out of this career and just engineering, but still, despite not following that through, it's still something I've got an aptitude for, and music, and in particular guitars, which was just obsessed with in a gear nerd kind of way. And figured I'd sort of smash those together and learn how to build guitars. So I had this year where I was on this notice period where I basically just rented the corner of a barn just outside of town and bought. The first thing I bought was a CNC, like a little X-Carve, like the hobby CNCs, which I've still got, and it's still one of the main tools that's been upgraded a million times since then. And it was like, I can draw, I can use computers, I can use this to like kind of get me over the first hurdle and then work out the rest of it from there. And that's kind of how it went. End of that year, moved into a proper workshop and kind of just kept going from that.
So you started, I'm assuming, you took that tinkering background and the engineering background and started working on the prototypes, but you pretty much knew at the end of the year, this is going to be the thing. So I've got to figure out a way to make that work. Did that pressure help accelerate that? Because that's pretty fast, really, for any small business to be able to convert to that quickly. Did that pressure help, or was it stressful? Would you recommend it? Would you recommend a different path? What's your viewpoint looking back?
The one thing I would definitely recommend, I think would apply to anyone, is ask people for help. Ask actual luthiers and people who already make guitars how to do it, rather than trying to being ashamed of thinking, oh no, they're going to think I'm just some idiot guy that's doesn't know what he's talking about, and being afraid of reaching out to the people that you've seen in the magazines or whatever, because the truth is that they've all been there at some point. And that would have helped avoid a lot of mistakes. But in terms of the speed of it, I'm kind of the kind of person where if I've got a safety net, and I know it's there, then I won't commit. So I have to get rid of that and kind of go in with both feet and go for it through thick and thin and through the ups and downs on that to see through. And that's kind of how I tackled it.
That's interesting. That's usually the opposite of what it is the opposite of what I did, and it's the opposite of what I usually suggest, because for me, having that that safety net of the day job there while I'm trying to build a thing, knowing that I'm going to screw up a whole bunch of stuff, just made those mistakes. It made me more willing to make them and learn from them, and B, it also allowed me to not stress about it so much. It's the family can still eat even if I completely screw this up. The worst case, it's going to cost money, time, a headache, and set me back however far potentially. But it allowed me the ability, or the mental ability, I guess, to make those leaps without being so scared. But there's something to be said for, that's why I asked about the pressure. Some people thrive under that. I know a few friends who have also no, I've got to have that pressure to really push me to do it, or I just won't really do it.
Yeah, I think your approach is definitely the sensible one, particularly from the perspective of being solvent and paying the rent. But yeah, I don't tend to crack under pressure. It tends to push me on to do something, to follow it through and do something better. But it doesn't necessarily make me particularly happy through that process of having sort of come out the other side of it. But that said, I don't resent any of that. I really enjoy turning up every day, and even if it's a difficult day, there's never a day where I don't want to show up and sort of work through that and see what comes out of it at the end, because I really enjoy it. So that kind of makes it all fine. It doesn't matter if it gets quite hard, because I'm enjoying the day while I'm at work. So that's kind of where I'm at with it. If I can wake up in the morning and there's a sufficient scope of opportunity for me to just enjoy the day, then that's okay. I've got to come to a fairly zen place with it.
I like that. That's really good. And waking up and not dreading the day is highly underrated, I think. Even if you have a lot of projects, if you've got a lot to do and it's never really going to end, you're always going to be working. As long as that you're okay with that, I think that's so preferable. And I understand that not everybody's wired for that, and it's not a critique against anybody who would rather just wake up, punch a clock, leave work at work. I've said it a million times on the show. My dad's wired that way. He would way rather do that, and he's I don't have to think about work when I'm not at work, which I totally understand, because I'm always thinking about work. I'm never not thinking about work, but I don't wake up on Monday like I used to and go, I can't believe. In my brain, I would go I'm going to have to do this for another 35, 40 years and go to this stupid, and just, I wasn't even able to have as good of an attitude about it as I should have, just because my brain is wired like this crazy person. And so just having that, I appreciate it more now, what I had, back then. than I did at the time, just because my mental state was not willing to accept those things for some reason.
No, I totally get that, and I do. There are days where you get jealous of just. I wish I could just do like a standard thing today, where I just sort of roll through it and then I'll go over the end of it, and then that's the end of it. But I know that those are kind of fleeting on the days where everything feels a bit much, and actually that wouldn't. I'm the same as you. That wouldn't make me happy if that was actually my sort of reality again.
Well, we've both done that already.
Yeah,
So I actually have actual nightmares sometimes where I'm back in the old space, and I'm going, what happened? Everything was going okay. How am I back? Why am I back here? What's going on? But I make it sound, when I say that, I make it sound like it was this horrid, absolutely, hellish place to work. And it wasn't. It wasn't.
No,
it was just.
I totally get that. I think the people I was working with at the time in my career would have not have seen the way I'm describing it at all. That would seem like foreign to them. But it's in terms of them thinking that, but you look like you're really happy with it, and you said it's not the case. But
it's hard to describe to people who don't understand it. Fortunately, most of the people I get on this show are a little more leaning the same direction I am, so I'm hoping it makes sense to everybody that's listening. But I always try to be. Oh, go ahead.
I'm a bit of I'm a Tone Mob fanboy, so I have got I've been able to pull out themes across however many years of episodes, and it's a pretty common theme, isn't it? That backstory of how people get to a job in the music industry is you hit a point where in theory everything looks fine in the job that you're doing that other people would be potentially envious of having, and it just you hit a wall for whatever reason. You have to make a change.
Well, even we were talking. Well, first of all, thank you. I really appreciate that you've spent all that time with the show. I wasn't aware of that, but we were talking about the Gina Gleason episode, and even her, where she, I think a lot of people would have looked at that Cirque du Soleil gig. If people haven't listened to that episode, you definitely should go back a couple and listen to that one. But she very much was like, it was a jobby job, like punch the clock job. Yes, I'm playing guitar, but
upside down.
Yeah, upside down while being launched out of various things. But it was a punch the clock type of job, which I don't think exists. That I could be wrong about this. I don't think that's a super common thing to experience while playing as a musician. Is a job like that, and I think a lot of people probably would be envious of that position. But she was like, I can't create in the way I want, and I really related to that. Even though she had a cool job, undoubtedly that was a cool job, but I did understand what she meant when she said, I gotta move on.
Yeah, definitely.
Mm-hmm. So let's talk about your guitars themselves a little bit here. Where are you coming up with these shapes? What's inspiring you? I've probably butchered it when I've tried to explain it to other people. I've been like, well, it's kind of like the Italian stuff, but not really. I don't know where these shapes and these concepts are. What's the root of all this? Where are you coming up with these things?
Yeah, Italian's a good shout, and sort of East European stuff as well, sort of 60s, 70s. I think the sentence I've used for a long time to try and encapsulate it is, if you went up into your granddad's attic and you found a dusty old case up there and you dug it out and you opened it and it's this brand that no one had seen for 20 or 30 years. Mm-hmm. But that's kind of the idea. That's what I want it to be like, but to look like that, but to play like a modern sort of well-made guitar. Mm-hmm. So yeah, the originally basically where I started was just taking all my personal favorite guitars, so things like Rickenbacker 330s or Tellys, SGs, and then things like Bobcats and sort of Japanese and American catalog guitars, and just drawing boxes. Like I just measured like how wide is it across the hips, how wide is it across the shoulders, layer these boxes up and start drawing curves inside of it. Mm-hmm. And you go through hundreds of iterations of horrible trash. And then eventually you get to the point where you can live with it, and then you start to like refine it down, and then from there and come up with a pickguard shape and put pickups in place and things like that. And that's all it is. It's just me drawing, sort of measuring up what do the basic proportions have to be, what do people expect in terms of the size of the instrument, and then just draw lines inside that, and eventually something that appeals to my eye, and kind of is loosely aligned with those guitars that I love, kind of appears out of that. So that's where the first shapes came from. That was the double standard was the first one, which is sort of the double cut one. I think the baritone that you've got there at the moment is that outline. And then the one that's the most popular, the Stella Rossa, that actually came from the guy who winds my pickups, Mark Ransley at Mojo Pickups in Halifax over here in England. And he asked me if I could build effectively a replica of an old Stella Japonica, so 60s Japanese catalog guitar that's basically impossible to get hold of. And he sent it to me, and it's basically like someone tried to make a Telecaster at like late Friday afternoon in the factory. They were just like, that'll do, and just like pushed it through the bandsaw. And it's almost completely rectangular, and not like particularly refined in any way. I was like, it's cool, I like it, but can I tweak it and come up with my own sort of twist on it? And it had these weird pickups that were in a huge kind of casing, so we did a kind of homage to that with like the pickup surrounds that fit over a P90 and stuff, and that's ended up being sort of the one that I like the most as well, and the one that people tend to buy the most. It was strange how little things come out of just suggestions like that, and just saying yes to stuff, and you don't know where it'll go.
Hi, I'm Vincent, and I'm here to talk about the Maris Mercury X. My dad's always going on and on about how cool Maris is. He really went off on one about the Mercury X the other day. He said something about a 4,800 hertz sample rate and 99 preset locations and 33 banks, and something along the lines of the most advanced reverb pedal ever devised by man? That's all true, but I only care about one thing. This pedal sounds sick. So make sure you check out the Mercury X and all the other fine products at maris.us, as well as fine retailers worldwide. All right, Dad, now can I have my Pocky?
How exactly do artists get their music on Spotify, Apple Music, Deezer, Tidal, all these services? How in the world do you get your music there? Well, in the past, you had to use something called a record label. But these days, you can use DistroKid. DistroKid is the absolute easiest way to get your music up on streaming services, and it's the most affordable way to do so. Not only do plans start at $22.99 for the entire year, that's less than $2 a month, DistroKid also does not take a cut of your streaming revenue, unlike some other services out there. Even better if you sign up by going to tonemob.com/distrokid. That's tonemob.com/distrokid. One more time, that's tonemob.com/distrokid. You'll get 30% off. That's right, 30% off their already extremely reasonable prices. So go to tonemob.com/distrokid and get your music out there. So when you are trying these things, have you ever had an experience where you spent a bunch of time drawing this up and you've spent a bunch of time with it on paper, and you get it out, you finally get it to where it's an actual prototype or an actual body sitting in front of you, and it's like, this is not how it looks on the paper.
Bad.
Because I've seen so many guitars, and not just guitars, but like lots of different things where you see it in probably the easiest one for Americans to imagine is the first time I saw the 4-door Jeeps that came out a few years ago was on a screen. And I thought, that looks horrible. Like, that looks so dumb. Why would they do that? I know functionally why they would do it, but it looks really bad. And then I saw it in person, and okay, this is a completely different thing. So it's almost the inverse of what I'm talking about. Like, have you ever had the paper not meet up with the reality?
Yeah, I think in the early days in particular, if I look back at a lot of those prototypes now and think about how they sort of came out at the time, how they looked on the page or on the paper is not how they looked in real life. But I think a lot of that was down to a distinct lack of ability at that stage to realize that kind of vision, that design, and turn that into an actual thing. It doesn't happen so much anymore because I don't tend to sort of deviate too much generally outside of 4 or 5 sort of main platforms, effectively, I guess you'd call them shapes,
Mm-hmm.
that I'm pretty happy with. So the things that can go wrong within that are more limited, but there's still scope for little things in terms of pick guard combinations or color combinations or pickups and things, and it just doesn't look quite right. But what I try and sort of triage that early on when people are coming up with ideas, and then through the process, if I can see something's going in the wrong direction, it's kind of like, hey, that might not quite be how you think it's going to be. How about we do this instead, and kind of problem solve on the fly. So it doesn't happen too often anymore, but it definitely did in the early days.
Right. That makes sense. So you had anything as you came along in this process? Like, I know you grew up playing in bands and you were surrounded by music, and I'm not sure how deep into that you got as a career or anything before you pivoted back to what you were originally doing. But have you had any processes or things come up during this process of starting this company that have been surprising to you or exciting or particularly just stand out in your mind as like a moment?
Oh, in terms of people getting involved with it, or in terms of the actual product,
people or things that have happened, anything that just like when I make that or put that out there, like what's the first thing that pops into your head?
I am just surprised to still be doing this 6.5 years later. That's constantly surprising. I think realizing, because when I was growing up, so the music I was into, I was, the NME, the New Musical Express, the magazine. There was a big deal when I was growing up. It was still like you had to pay for it and stuff, and religiously would buy it like every week when it came out. And eventually it became this free rubbish thing, but back then it was like a Bible, and the bands and they were in that, and the guitars they were playing and stuff. That was my religion. That was like everything to me. And then so to realize after sort of reaching out to people in those bands or new bands, whatever, reaching out to other luthiers and speaking to them as well, how normal everyone is, and how basically everyone's just kind of winging it and getting through, and eventually something cool happens to them, and it maybe, or maybe it doesn't, but sometimes something cool happens and it takes them to another level, and then they become these kind of figures that you see sort of in the media or online or whatever. That's been a nice surprise to find those people relatable and to start sort of relationships with those people when I went into this thinking I'm just this data guy kind of pretending to be a luthier. Like, why would anyone speak to me? And then you'd realize that actually you've got quite a lot in common with these people that you hold in quite high regard. That's been a nice surprise and still is.
Yeah, that I relate to you big time on. I coming into this, I feel like I was just so obsessed with gear. I wanted to just get in there. I want to get in there. I don't know what I'm going to do when I get in there, but I want to get in there. And getting to meet some, people that I consider musical heroes, and having them, my wife look at me while we're doing it and like walk away from some of these situations. She's like, they're just like you. I'm like, I know, isn't it great? This is fantastic.
I can't tell whether that was tinged with disappointment or
I think for her, I think honestly, she was as surprised as I was to find that like these people we've grew up, just obsessed with their music, both of us. And it's happened a number of times at this point. So I can't even point to, just one or two examples. And she's just like, it's so crazy. Like how you guys can just sit down and start talking about checking on nitro finishes. Like, it's wonderful. It's great.
It's all I ever dreamed of.
Yeah. So, speaking of finishes, you have an approach to, I know relicking is a hot button topic in the guitar industry because everything apparently has to be a hot button topic these days. But that you've taken to this like really quickly. I feel like some relics I've seen even from really established brands and companies, I'm like, it looks like you just kind of hit it with keys. And I've been to a couple companies where that is what they do. And I actually used to do that a little bit. My dad finished cabinets for a living when I was a kid, and sometimes people want a distressed look. He's like, and he literally had a metal bar with a bunch of old keys on it, and he's like, go hit that door. I'm like, okay. So I kind of understood the relicking, but yours is believable. Like
thank you, man.
It has that vibe.
Means a lot. Thank you.
Yeah, it has that vibe that you're talking about. Like, oh, go up in the attic and open this case. It looks like a guitar that's actually been played really aggressively, not, purposely done this way.
Yeah.
How long did it take to develop that?
Yes, it's constantly evolving. There's stuff even within the last year where I look back and go, it could have been better. So it's a lot of it is just practice. I think the thing that I learned about sort of 3 or 4 years ago that moved it on a level was never sand anything. Like that's not how a guitar naturally ages. So that's like it's when you can see like a I'm not going to accuse any brands or anything, but when you see like a bad relic, you can always see that it's been sanded, and it's like it's really obvious. Always, particularly, you can see it's been like disc sanded, and there's still little swirlies in it and stuff. Like it just doesn't work. So it's literally getting the guitars to like as perfect as I can get them. And I'm not making them perfect all the way through the process because I purposely don't fill as aggressively as I could and stuff like that to make sure there's like it will help me create flaws at the end of the process.
You mean like grain filler?
Yeah, so I tend to do sort of more primer and less grain filler, which helps me find flaws at the end that I can start to sort of work around to make it more believable. But then most of it, I just get it as perfect, glossy, flat as I can, and then use basically a Stanley knife blade, a craft knife blade, and a rock. I've got a good old rock. The road outside our workshop, there's an animal feed station like next door, like a depot. And there's constantly trucks going past the front of our workshop, and I keep breaking up the road, and bits of rock fly out and hit the workshop every day. So I just go out and scoop those up, bring them into the workshop, and then start the guitar because they're like concrete with loads of little bits of rubble in them and stuff, like little stones. So they've got really good weird edges on them and stuff. Things so you can make really. The key is like don't sound anything and don't do anything uniform. Like as soon as it starts to look like a pattern, like your brain just wants to make patterns. It wants to do lines and squares and stuff, and making it as random as possible is kind of the key thing. So yeah, that's basically it. It's scraping during the process of flattening it. So I'm already relicking it as I'm going up through the grits, through like 600, 800,000, introduce different bits of like chips here, like rub out bits here and stuff like that. Rub a load of dirt into it, this part of it, as you're going through the process of flattening it out, and then right at the end, like then make it just get the extra dirt and get the crazing in and stuff like that. So it's pretty involved process, but it's the bit that I enjoy the most because that's kind of the art part of it for me. So the bit where I feel like an artist is when I'm designing them, and then right at the end of the finishing process, and assembling them. They're the bits that really sort of get me going.
Have you ever thrown a rock at something and then went, ooh, that doesn't look right. That looks like I threw a rock at it. Yeah.
Into the corner of it breaks off. And it happens.
That's an extremely heavy relic because it's broken now.
Yeah, you kind of have to you have to go cautiously and work your way up. It's very easy to go from a light to a medium relic by accident quite quickly, but yeah,
especially when you're using this natural found organic material.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just pelting your shop every day. Glad to know that your roads are in the same shape ours are, though. That's
man, it's a mess. That's a good road. That's smooth as glass compared to most of the roads around our way. The workshop's out in the middle of what we call it the fens, so it's like a wetland kind of flat area in Cambridgeshire, around where I live in Cambridge, and basically the roads are just complete trash. They go through a lot of tyres commuting to the workshop every day. But okay. I'm not going to go into pothole chat. I think that's probably beneath us both, but
it's not beneath me.
90% of your day.
No, I actually, this is so boring, but we're here. The roads in Oregon, I will say that Oregon's got its problems, but the roads are, a lot of Oregonians complain about the roads, and I can tell they haven't left the state. Let's just put it that way.
You don't know how good you got it.
Yeah, exactly. I'll take you to a place called Tennessee. I'll show you some roads.
I'd like to get some tips from you. I want to do. I haven't spent a huge amount of time in the US since I was a kid and sort of doing family holidays and stuff. I'd like to do a road trip at some point, but I was wondering maybe I should get tips from you on. I was thinking of the ones to go to check out the worst roads in the US, but maybe
the worst roads. Let's see. Probably Indiana. The roads are pretty gnarly. Tennessee's pretty. It's not like horrible. It's not like you can't drive anywhere, but yeah, the roads in those two places are pretty bad. Florida's kind of weird. Yeah, it's hard for me to remember exactly. I've been to a lot of states, but I don't necessarily drive a lot when I go places outside of Tennessee. I've done a lot of driving in Tennessee just because I've gone there quite frequently. But
I'm picturing half of your listeners just either nodding along in agreement or switching off immediately.
Or
Florida's just weird.
Or don't you talk about Florida that way. Florida's a beautiful place and I love it. It's too sticky for me. That's all I know. But you're thinking about coming to the US. Is that something on the horizon?
I'd like to do a NAM at some point. I think it's obviously a fairly major investment to do that, getting across from the UK. So I think I'll probably jump on someone else's stand. But yeah, I definitely want to. I mean, most of the guitars go to the US. I think it's probably about 80% or more of the guitars are getting shipped out to various places in the US, sort of mainly California and New York, but all over the shop. So it would make a lot of sense for the business for me to go out and see some people, and also I'd just like to come out and spend a bit more time in your country because I haven't really been there a lot, apart from, like I said, Disney World and stuff like that.
Right. Yeah, NAM's an interesting one. I go a little bit. I've gone back and forth on it over the years as far as for brands, whether it's worth it or not, and for me, it's always the calculation is always like, where are you at with the company? Where are you trying to go with the company? Do you want to increase your presence at dealers? Do you not really care about that? Neither is right or wrong. It's just, what do you want to do? Because it is an investment. For international people, it's, I think, a little more valuable than it is sometimes for US brands, because you can come here and get a lot more exposure to the US market that you may not see otherwise, especially for people that are a long ways away, like in Australia. NAM can be really a lot more valuable, even though it's harder and more expensive because of those travels. If you were to try to go to Dallas Guitar Show and, whatever else, the smaller things that pop up here and there in the States, which can be really valuable for people who are already here, I think NAM can make more sense. But it's always a question of like, is this the most effective way to spend $10,000 plus?
Spend at least $10,000. Yeah.
Yeah, at least. And for you, I mean, with the travel, it might be even worse. Plus, you're doing guitars, which are a lot. That takes a lot to. You got to bring a lot of guitars.
You can't put them in your hand luggage. Yeah, you can't stuff a load of pedals in a carrier bag and walk through security.
Yeah, it's a lot more involved. But that's not a reason to not do it. But it is. I do like to encourage people, though, if you do it, like, work the show. Like, it's exhausting, but like, be in the booth and be exuberant and be there to like talk to people, because I've talked to a few people that have spent the money, done everything, had great looking booths, and they sat in the corner on the booth on their phone the whole time, and then they complained about how it wasn't worth it. I'm like, I understand why you want to sit in the corner of your booth on your phone the whole time. Don't get me wrong, but that's not going. You will waste your money if you do that. So plan on hustling.
I appreciate the advice. Now I've done enough guitar shows over here to know that as much as it's pain, it's 2 days minimum of pain, and your ears are going to bleed at the end of it. Like, you have to be on it, or why are you there?
Yeah. Have you, the guitar shows that you've done, have you gotten a lot out of them, or how do you feel about the ones more local to you?
Yeah, I think as things have gone on and I've got more sort of comfortable in my own skin as a luthier. It's I've got more out of them. I think early doors I probably was the guy that was just sort of stood there, just afraid to talk to anyone, especially coming off the back of sort of changing career, because I really lost the ability to speak to anyone in public.
Yes, yeah, that would do it.
Yeah, that's a little bit of a problem, but yeah, no, I've kind of got past it now, and yeah, definitely get a lot more out of it. I really enjoy being there now, where I didn't necessarily so much in the past, especially as I've built up sort of more friends in the community as well. That it's good. Even if you're having a slow period sort of on the stand or whatever, that there's a ton of people there that I want to talk to and that I like, and I'm looking forward to hanging out with them and stuff like that. So it's not a chore anymore. It's enjoyable, but none of it's just anywhere near the scale of NAMM. I don't think. Like the biggest one over here is the Birmingham show, so they're in the Midlands in like March time, and that's pretty big as far as UK shows go. But I think it's like it's one floor and it's maybe a couple of hundred exhibitors. It's nothing compared to you guys.
I mean, but that's how most shows are here, really. Like that would be a big show here. NAMM is just excessively big. You know, it's the oldest, largest, and it's every. It's not just guitars, right? It's every musical instrument or music, even very tangential. Like Walmart had people walking around there last time. You know, like
like buyers or actually like selling stuff.
There were people trying to. So Walmart has like the Amazon competitor website that they have, and they were trying to get people to sell on their platform, which does make sense. I understand that. But like WordPress was there, you know, like there's like sometimes it's like, I guess it does make sense why you're here, but you're not music related necessarily. So it's kind of, it's a wide net that NAMM casts, and I think that's part of why it's so big. But yeah, something that has a couple hundred booths here, that's a pretty big regional show. You know, it's usually very regional. It's like the Northwest, whatever, or the Dallas Guitar Show or whatever. But that's a pretty large show. Sounds like it's pretty comparable.
Yeah, no, it's a good one. It's a guy called Jason who runs it. He does a really good job. It was good this year. It was good in the sense that it was like quite low ceiling and like quite all built up with the booth, so all of the sound kind of got trapped into little channels, so it wasn't quite as like soul crushing as it had been in the past, because previously it had been in like an old like town hall style, like almost like warehouse venue with a massive roof, and all of the sound, all of the shredding goes up into the roof, and it just rains down on you like, relentlessly for 8 hours. And yeah, unfortunately the roof on that place burned down, which is sad, but silver lining. Slightly more appropriate venue now.
It absorbed too many riffs. It couldn't handle it anymore.
It's the pure power of rock.
let me pass. Just let me die. Oh, man. We are brought to you today by Sweetwater, specifically the Gear Exchange. You may have heard about this. This is a place where you can go to buy and sell your used gear. Maybe you got a pedal over there that's just kind of collecting dust. Maybe there's something you've been eyeing from the Sweetwater catalog. Well, right now is a great time to turn that unused gear into something you're actually going to use. Even better, if you sell on the Gear Exchange, you can keep 100% of the sale as long as you choose a Sweetwater gift card as your payout method. That is not too shabby, because let's be honest, most of this buying and selling we do is just to fund new gear purchases, and that is a great way to reach a wide variety of customers and keep 100% in your pocket, or rather on your pedal board. So go check out the Sweetwater Gear Exchange and turn that unused gear into something that's actually going to help you write that next huge riff.
Hello there. I'd like to introduce you to your new best friend, the Chase Bliss Audio Lossy. Lossy is a collaboration between Chase Bliss and Goodhertz. And it's meant to give you some control over those weird digital artifacts that come with very compressed audio. Your playing it right now. All the changes that are taking place are strictly coming from my playing dynamics. I'm just interacting with the pedal and letting it do its thing. In some true stereo goodness. If you'd like some more details about Lossy, I'd invite you to head over to chaseblitzaudio.com. I think you're gonna like what you find.
But I do want to talk to you specifically about this baritone. This is a kind of a segue here, but I just want to know how this baritone came to exist. So for people who haven't seen it yet, it's a 28-inch scale baritone with multiple effects built into it. This is one of the craziest guitars I've ever played. How?
Thanks.
Yeah,
that's a nice compliment. Why? It was a bad idea, which I insisted on following through to completion. So it was originally a commission from a customer. So a guy rang me up out of the blue. I think he found the website through a Google ad, and he was putting together like a synth rig. He had this thing he called like the monster or the beast or something. We had like surrounded by synths. And
I like the sound of this.
Yeah, and he was running into amps and stuff. And he was like, he was a guitar player. He played a lot of classical guitar and stuff. He was like, I want a guitar that can plug into the beast, let's call it. And then sort of manipulate guitar lines and stuff. And I want it to be a baritone. And that was kind of it. That was kind of just the brief. And he wanted some sort of effects manipulation in there as well. So it's like, cool, that sounds really fun. I'm up for that. So we kind of drafted out designs, went through different iterations, stuff, got deposit down, started, and then sort of it was in the queue, working through it, sort of working out how to actually accomplish it, and came to the realization over the course of maybe 3 months that this guy, who was quite a sort of successful retired professional, had quite a serious crack cocaine habit, and would ring me sort of 2 a.m. every couple of days, and some days it would be like, man, it's a journey and it's a process. It's like it's a new thing. Like, take time, work out. It's going to be amazing. And then other days it would be like, where's my guitar?
Oh,
where is it? I need it now.
Where's it at? I want it. Give me my guitar.
And I was like, man, this is quite stressful. So I kind of put up with that for a little while, and it got to the point where he rang me at like in the middle of the night one Sunday or whatever, and I was just like, nope.
We're not doing this.
Why I'm doing this. Yeah.
Nope.
So I rang him back the next day. I was like, here's your deposit back. Thanks. See you later. But then by that point, the idea was fully formed, and I already started doing the woodwork on it. It was like, no, I'm going to finish this because this is a cool idea despite the challenging circumstances. So I finished the bit that I could do, which was all the sort of making a guitar part. And then my buddy Neil at NRG Effects, who are down on the south coast in England, who I met at a few shows and stuff, and we talked about sort of some weird ideas. And I was like, this guy would be the guy for it. So I sent him down the guitar, and I sent him down all the pedals and wanted to go into it. So I bought a Ibanez like mini delay, like mini reverb, analog reverb, and delay, and then a Mr. Black mini reverb, and Neil does a really good like gnarly fuzz. So I was like, you do the fuzz. I was like, right, basically you've got to disassemble these pedals, take all of the pots off of the boards, replace them with sliders on fly leads, and then fit everything inside the body of this guitar through these silly little ports that I've put in the top that are hidden under the plates, and there's no back plates, so you've got basically no access to the inside of the guitar, because I hate back plates like with a passion. Like you struggle to find any guitar I've made that's got a back plate on it, because they're always like freaking sausage shape or like some shape completely unrelated to the rest of the guitar, and it makes me unhappy. So no back plates on anything. All of the access is always hidden through like little ports under the scratch plate and stuff. But anyway, I kind of went off on a tangent. So he had that to deal with as well, and I think I nearly pushed him to the edge of a breakdown, but he pulled it off, and he did an amazing, like, incredible job getting all that, and it all works. So you've got like a master effects on, off, individual on offs for all the effects, and then all of the 3 parameters for each effect are controlled by the sliders which are on the plate, which is where the same shape as my like trem top plate, so where a trem would normally be. And then the power comes up from the floor. So rather than having to put batteries in it, there's a little box that you put in front of your tuner. So right at the start of your pedal chain, and you use the stereo lead, and it just sends the power up the third rail on the stereo lead to power the effects in the guitar. So you don't need to be messing about with anything else.
That was super clever. I thought
it's
that was
really smart of him. Like, kudos to Neil for that one. That was he just kind of like tossed off the idea. He was just like, yeah, we just do it with this little box. I was like, is that really going to work? Yeah, apparently it does. I was quite surprised. I thought it was going to be like horrible interference or something, but apparently not. I
didn't notice anything. So it's a P90 in there. So if there was going to be noise, we would get it, right?
Yeah.
It's crazy, and it was just weird to think about how small and weird this whole industry is, because there's a very, very good chance that I did the machining on that case for the Mr. Black reverb that he threw in the garbage, I'm assuming. Because I go there like a couple times a month and just help out and run the machines for a day or two. And
man.
Yeah, so there's a good chance that I did that case.
I was maybe scared about putting that one in there, actually, because I sent an email through like the contact form on the website saying, hey, I'm going to do this. And I didn't hear anything back. So I was like, I'm going to take that as silent agreement that this is cool.
What that meant, I can tell you what that meant is good luck. And we're not going to warranty it if you mess it up.
It's a very smart position to take.
But I actually do love that pedal, genuinely. I think it's, even if it was a big pedal, it's one of the most versatile 3-knob reverbs ever. I thought it was a great choice for putting in this guitar.
Sounds great. I mean, there's not many like little 3-knob reverbs out there that run off like no power. It's brilliant. It kind of does everything you want.
Yeah, and the Ibanez, it's a great selection of things that you put in there as well. It's things that make sense. Like I could see some people maybe wanting modulation or something, but if I were to select the effects that would be on board, it would have been something like that. So those were good choices.
Yeah, it was kind of I think I was thinking of like Mogwai or Explosions in the Sky or like Godspeed or stuff like that. So like post rock stuff where you can go from the kind of clean, kind of like heavily delayed and reverb lines to then kicking in some fuzz and just going huge with it. That's kind of what I wanted it to do.
Yep, it does that. And
have you worked out the feedback control on the fuzz yet? Have you deciphered how to make anything except sort of beep boop noises?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, I figured that out pretty cool. That's in my wheelhouse of noise making. Yeah, sometimes I want the beep boop, sometimes I don't. But I was able to figure that out. It did take me by surprise. I actually was expecting it to be a slightly tamer fuzz because I wasn't super familiar with Neil's work before this showed up, and so I was expecting it to be a little more. A little lower gain and a little less gnarly. So I was like, wow, this is a lot. And, but I wrangling those type of beasts is what I do. So I was able to get my head around it pretty quickly.
It interacts quite well with the volume as well. So if you back the volume off just a little bit, it starts to sound a bit more like a high gain distortion rather than a fuzz. And then you can sort of push the bias like wide open. So it becomes much more kind of like crunchy, almost like ampy than fuzzy. And then if you wind the bias back and push the volume back up to the maximum, it gets much more sort of spitty and monophonic again.
I love that they're all. I've seen guitars with onboard effects, and they're usually all on or all off. And I love that you can pick which ones you want, because what I'd like to do is like play some like prettier, nicer passages, and then click the fuzz on and just I'll just blow it all out. And
me too.
It's so much fun. So yeah, I'll be making some clips. I haven't yet as this cool. Recording goes out, but I will be making some clips with it for the old social medias. So if I haven't by the time this episode drops, that would be very surprising. I probably have made one or two by the time this episode comes out.
Oh, that's cool. Thanks. Well, I'm glad I just wanted you to play around with it, enjoy it for a while. So yeah,
I would have done it last week when it showed up, but I was sick.
No,
so I unboxed it on Patreon while I was doing another interview. with the fella that came on. His name was John Schultz, and I was like, hold on, DHL's showing up, and it's raining outside, so let me go get this real quick. And we paused, and I just had it sitting back behind me. He's like, so you're not going to open it? I was like, I figured I'd wait till the podcast was over. He's like, let's open it. I'm like, okay, this is kind of weird for an audio format, but so yeah, I unboxed it on there. I don't think it was probably the best Patreon episode after that happened. So sorry.
Did you go
everybody.
all like ASMR with it as well, and like lean into the mic? I'm taking the packing material out.
No, it was more like, hold on just a second. It was more like that. Yeah.
Whatever floats. Some people will be really into that.
Some people, probably, hopefully. But yeah, and immediately after I felt like I was kind of coming down with something when we started. I was like, I don't feel very good. Maybe I'm just sore from working out or whatever. And then it was like, I was like not making any sense by the time the podcast was over. So I got done, and I was like, I bolted the neck on that guitar, and I was like, I gotta go lay down. I feel awful right now.
I've done my juice. I've done it's reassembled. It's done.
Yes.
I'm out.
But what was kind of incredible is it traveled all that way. I bolted the neck back on, strung it up to B, or tuned it up to B rather. Perfect.
Oh, good.
That's like flawless.
Nice.
I was like, wow. I've always had to adjust something, but it was like, no, this thing's dialed. After that rather intense trip overseas. So
that makes me very happy, man. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I feel some way competent. That's a big tick.
You should feel very confident. This thing is really nice. It outside of all the craziness, it's just a really nice guitar, man.
Yeah, that's kind of what I wanted. That you could just turn all that stuff off, and it's just a nice one pickup guitar that that just makes like nice guitar sounds with a like wide frequency range, and it does quite a lot. And even before you start like flicking all the switches and stuff.
It also, for being 28 inches, my first 28-inch guitar was my Grez Mendocino, and I love that guitar. Absolutely.
Yeah, they're amazing.
But it felt really long to me. It doesn't anymore because I've played it so much. But initially, it was like, oh, this feels lengthy. And maybe it's because I've gotten used to it a little bit, but this one felt a little more like a 27. And I don't know if that's just due to the body shape or if there was some thought into it or it was a happy accident, but it works.
I think it's the body shape. I think the heel goes a bit further into the guitar than on the sort of the normal scale, so like 25-inch scale ones. I think it's pushed a little bit further in to try and keep it a bit more compact. So I think when I first drew it, it looked long. It just looked like really long. I thought that's not going to be much fun. So it's kind of, you compromise the upper fret access a little bit just to get the overall length down. But I think you're right. It feels a bit more right on the strap, like when you reach out further towards the nut. Yeah.
Was 28 on purpose? I mean, obviously it was on purpose. That's a stupid question, but like, why not 27 or why not a different?
I'm just going to throw the frets of the guitar and see what it lands.
Just like the rocks.
Yeah,
like,
microtonal. Yeah. I think it's just kind of a good halfway house. I think you can go to, like, without having to get into sort of extreme strings, you can go to B or to C quite easily on that with a sort of medium gauge of sort of baritone strings. It doesn't sort of get too fussy about it. So I figured that was a good sort of middle ground so that people could then go wherever they wanted with it rather than being stuck in one particular sort of pitch or tuning.
Yeah, I like it. Yeah, 27, 28 I think is pretty ideal for baritones. I've played 30s. I'm like,
it's
almost a bass. Yeah, that's
I think my short scale bass is like 30.75. So yeah, basically that.
Yeah, exactly. Well, hey man, I just realized this flew by, and we're approaching the end of the podcast, main episode so anyway.
53 minutes. You kidding?
That's crazy. That felt like about 25. So I guess that's a sign that it's a good episode. But before we wrap this up, I like to ask classic questions at the end. But before I do, I like to give the guests a chance to take the floor, plug anything you want to plug, shout out anybody you want to shout out, say hi to your grandma, whatever the case may be. The floor is yours.
I would love to say that Grandma Oram is listening, but it's probably not. What do you want to say? Neil, that I mentioned before, shout out to him. NRG Effects, I think he's got a sale on at the moment. He makes some amazing stuff. So go check him out. Some of the bands that I work with, there's a guy called Richard Dawson, who's an amazing kind of, I'd call it psychedelic folk. That's probably not the right word, but he had a record out this year called The Ruby Chord, which is incredible. The first track on it is 40 minutes long. It's probably not the best introduction to Richard Dawson ever. Maybe go back to his previous album 2020 first, which is sort of more 3 to 8 minute long songs, and then go on to Ruby Chord. But that's an incredible record, as is the new live recording from Public Service Broadcasting that I work with, that they recorded at Royal Albert Hall earlier this year. Which is called This New Noise, which is about sort of the history of the BBC and radio in Britain, which is really cool. It was a good show. I was there for it. Unfortunately, the snippet in between two of the songs where my partner Rachel dropped a plastic pint glass on the floor just as the orchestra went silent, got cut from the final mix. But Jay, the frontman, was kind enough to send me like a little just snippet of that really like cranked the gain up on it, so you can hear it go. But anyway, that's a great record. And another artist that I'm working with, Era, so it's EERA, Anna-Lena, Norwegian, living in Berlin, makes incredible music. You should go listen to her last album, Speak, and she's just got a crowdfunder going for her third album, which is going to be great. And I've recently made a baritone for her as well, which she's already out using, and she's brilliant. So go check her out.
Very nice. I think that's the first time anybody's plugged a bunch of artists, if I can remember correctly. That's a good call. I like that. Listen to all those people. Now I got a list of people to check out. So thanks, man. All right. First question. Here we go. What is your favorite Boss pedal?
I know it comes up a lot, but it probably is the Metal Zone, but not on guitar. I had a little synth like rig going for a while, with like drum machines and stuff, just to get like loops and patterns going in that. Mm-hmm. Metal Zone sounds amazing on like a monophonic synth, because it's got that like the mid sweep on it is like really wide, so you can do like old school kind of like trance kind of like lead lines on it if you just like hold down a note and then sweep through the mids on a Metal Zone. Mm-hmm. And like the band, have you heard the band Buttons?
I don't think so.
No, they're not going anymore. I think the guys have gone off and done other stuff now. But their first couple of albums are definitely that kind of sound, either synths or guitars that sound like sort of sustained notes where you just got these like sweep where they're just manipulating pedals in real time.
Nice.
Like, it's not easy listening background.
I didn't imagine so, but it sounds like fun.
It is cool. One of their tracks got played at like the opening ceremony for the Olympics in London, like however long ago that was, like a decade. So the track was called Olympians, so maybe they were kind of like angling for that. But, so yeah, Metal Zone for that. I've just picked up I think it's a PH2 phaser as well.
Very nice. Yep.
Which is like the one with the different modes on it and stuff, but it's got the expression input, because I've just built another baritone for someone. And I've done a couple of these now where it's basically got an expression pedal built into it, with what looks like a tremolo arm controls the expression.
Oh, so cool.
So it's actually through strung, but it looks like it's got a trem, because it's got an actual trem arm that kindly Chris Swope at Descendant agreed to let me like disassemble one of his trems and just steal the collet and the arm off of it. And it's kind of mounted to a gear system that's under the plate, so you can plug that into a separate stereo jack, stereo lead, and then into the expression input on any external pedal, and then use that arm to control the parameters on any
That's so
effect.
Sick.
Yes,
yeah, cool. I love that.
So it's like the next step from that one that you've got, in that like it's not just the inbuilt effects, you can control all your whatever outboard stuff you want to attach it to. And there's only two of them, including the one I've just made. The other one's in Germany, and the guy who's got it hooked up to, I've forgotten what brand it is, but it's basically an expression splitter, so you can plug 3 expression inputs into one controller and then use this arm to control like the parameters on 3 different pedals at the same time. So that's mad.
That's beautiful. Yeah. I love that. That's phenomenal.
I bought that phaser to test that arm to see if it works, and it does. It makes some really weird noise.
That's so sick. I love that. All right, final question before we go to Patreon. Here we go. What is your favorite kind of pizza?
I'd happily eat pizza all day, every day, to the annoyance of my partner, who can never ask, what should we have for dinner? Without the answer just always being pizza. And it rarely actually happens. But I think it would be like a thin crust Italian style thing. There's not that many like great like kind of mid-price places to eat out in Cambridge. It's a bit weird for that. It's either just like kebabs or Michelin stars. Not much in between. But there's a Italian place called Maurizio's, which is really good. The service is occasionally awful, but the food is always great. And they do pizzas with like friarelli, like the the turnip tops in garlic, and then like guanciale, like the pig's cheek, and like spicy and andouja and stuff like that. That for me, just like a couple of good, like really good, like Italian ingredients. Have it with tomato, have it white. I don't really mind, but just a couple of little toppings like that.
That sounds brilliant.
That's me. I want to go to New York as well, because I've got a feeling I'd love a New York style pizza, but I've not been.
Yeah, it's a very different thing from what you're describing, but like it's an experience. I've said this a bunch on the podcast, but before I went to New York, I didn't understand the hype. I was kind of into pizza before then, like a normal person. Yeah. Not like me now that exists today. And I didn't really get it. I was like, it looks like pizza. It just looks like pizza. I don't understand. And as soon as we got there, started eating it, my whole life changed. I was like, okay. And I went in skeptical. I went in like not believing it, not buying it. Like this is just going to be pizza, whatever. And no, it is. There's something that I don't know. Maybe
it's touched your soul.
It did. I've never been the same since. And my wife too. She kind of had the same attitude as like, oh, this will probably be good. And we both took a bite of Joe's and we looked at each other like, okay, all right. They're correct. We were wrong. This is special. So definitely do that for sure.
There we go. That's my good excuse to go to NAMM and then just turn it into a big holiday and end up in New York eating massive
New York, and maybe I can meet you in New Haven. I still got to get to New Haven. Oh, one of these days I will get to New Haven.
I'm there.
All right. Well, dude, thank you so much for hanging out. I'm looking forward to what we can get into on Patreon. And this has been tremendous. I really enjoyed this chat.
Me too. Thanks.
Yeah. All right, everybody. For Matt, this is Blake. And as always, folks, good luck and good tones. All right, folks. Thank you very much for checking out this episode. If you go over to Patreon, we get pretty weird over there. We dissect some things. We talk about some movies. We get into some just weird sci-fi topics and all kinds of other stuff. So if you would like to get into those conversations, those extended conversations, and help support the show and keep this thing going, please go to patreon.com/tonemob. And for $5 a month, you will get access to those. And you will also get access to the ad-free feed. So thank you very much to everyone who does that. Please share this with a friend. Share these episodes around. That is how this show keeps going. Please tell people about it. It is the only way that the lights stay on around here, is if more and more people keep listening and finding it. And that is all very much thanks to you. All right, folks, I'll talk to you on the internet very soon. I got a busy week ahead, but you will be hearing from me on the interwebs, I'm sure. All right, take care. Bye-bye. One last thing before we totally sign off here. I just want to remind you that if you do any shopping at Stringjoy, that's Stringjoy guitar strings made in Nashville, that will help me out as well. As I've said for years, I'm heavily involved in that company, and I really do think they're making the best products on the market. So if you would like to try custom strings, go to tonemob.com/stringjoy and check them out today. I seriously love what the team down there is doing. I help them out with all kinds of things, and by you supporting them, you are also supporting me as well. And hey, you need some strings, so why not get some custom strings just for your guitar and playing style? Again, the link for that is tonemob.com/stringjoy, and that will take you right to their website. and you can do all your shopping through there, and that will help everyone involved out. So thank you very much. Talk to you next time. We are brought to you by the wonderful folks at Gun Street Wiring Shop. Yes, Gun Street Wiring Shop. I've talked about them before. I used to say based out of Bend, Oregon, but guess what? Sean moved to my neck of the woods. Sean's in Portland. Sean is awesome and has helped me with a bunch of stuff lately. And if you have wiring needs for your guitar, he can help you too. If you want to get weird with it, he can get weird. If you just need to spruce things up a little bit, there's your guy. He takes all the guesswork out of doing your guitar wiring, and he makes it simple, and his customer service is top-notch, and I can't say enough good things about Gun Street as a company. I really respect Sean and what he's all about, and the product is top-notch. I've got 3 different guitars that now have Gun Street harnesses in them, and I could not be happier. So go to gunstreetwiringshop.com and check them out.
Hey, what's up? My name's Lurk, and I'm the host of Lambgoat's Van Flip podcast. Every week, I have in-depth conversations with bands from all over the scene, big and small. We also like to keep our finger on the pulse and showcase up-and-coming bands on the show as well. So come check out Lambgoat's Van Flip podcast.
Hey, this is Dewey Halpus, host of Peer Pleasure on the Sound Talent Media Podcast Network. Join me each week as I explore another long-form conversation with one of your favorite musicians, actors, comedians, or creatives. From Chino Moreno of the Deftones, John Gorley of Portugal the Man, to Fat Mike from NoFX and Ian MacKaye from Fugazi and Minor Threat, we go all over the map. From Fall Out Boy to Slayer, Peer Pleasure has it all. Check us out now on Sound Talent Media.